Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us here today. My name is Chef Jeff Harris, and I am one of the culinary admissions demonstrators here out of the Charlotte, North Carolina campus of Johnson & Wales University. Many of you may recognize me as the demonstrator or the guest chef that has come in and spoke to your high school classrooms. And I'm really excited to be able to welcome you here into our home today down here in Charlotte. So right now I am on campus. This is our Hans Auditorium, and this is typically where we will invite, during a normal school year, guest chefs, guest speakers, industry professionals to come in and speak with our students. Um, so through my time as a student here at Johnson Wales, I actually got to watch a couple of my idols come in and put on a show, including Chef Emeril Lagasse, one of my favorite chefs of all time, one of the ones that inspired me to get into culinary, as well as Chef Alton Brown. Both put on demonstrations here while I was a student. So I'm honored to be able to stand in the place where giants have stood and present with you today. And I actually have a really cool demonstration plan. We're going to use an ingredient that you may not have ever seen or played around with before. This is actually dry ice. So we're going to make a dry ice cream. And if you're unfamiliar with dry ice, there's a couple of things we're going to talk about in regards to the safety of using it and what specifically it is before we go and make this dish. So dry ice is actually a very cold form of carbon dioxide. It's the solid form of carbon dioxide gas. And when I say very cold, what I mean is it's around negative 109 degrees. So today what we're going to use the dry ice to do is to freeze our ice cream. And the reason why it's called dry ice is because it sublimates, which means that it goes directly from this solid state here to a gaseous state. So it skips the liquid phase. It goes straight from a solid to a gas. And when we're using it today, one of the big things that you do need to be concerned about, first off, this is carbon dioxide. So when you're using it, please make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. That carbon dioxide can displace oxygen. So if you're doing this somewhere where there's not enough fresh air getting in, if you're in a tight enclosed space, that can cause some issues because you're not going to get adequate oxygen. In addition to that, this is very, very cold. So try not to touch the dry ice with your bare hands. If you happen to touch it for a split second, it's not going to be the end of the world, but prolonged contact will cause something more along the lines of like a frostbite. It's the same thing of why I don't want to touch a hot stove top. So just a couple of safety precautions with that. The other thing is this is carbon dioxide. So I have seen people before, it comes in a block. It looks like a big block of ice when you get it. And I've seen people try to crush it up by throwing it in an enclosed blender or like a magic bullet type thing. I do not recommend that. If you put it in something closed and you stir it up, imagine taking a bottle of soda and just shake until you're concentrating all that carbon dioxide and building the pressure. I know you've probably seen if you open it, imagine the cap blowing off the bottle of soda because that pressure building up. The same thing will happen if you're blending that carbon dioxide in an enclosed area. So that's just a couple of basic safety things for you to consider before we get started. Right here, though, I do have some water. What we can do with this dry ice is just show you a little bit of how it works. So we'll put it in there. You may have seen people make like the little clouds or the fog before. I think this is a really cool thing to use. So that was literally just a little cup of water. And as we drop the dry ice in there, it is converting directly to that gas, creating the fog that we see. So you can use that in beverages. You can also use this if, let's say, you wanted to make soda. So today we're going to use this root beer extract to make our root beer flavored ice cream for our float. And you can actually use this with that carbon dioxide, there's a recipe on here, with that dry ice to carbonate your own root beer at home. So I got this off Amazon. If you're unable to find it at a grocery store near you, you can just take a look on Amazon for root beer extract or root beer concentrate. Keep in mind there's a little bit of a difference with those. If you're diving into a root beer concentrate, it's going to be a little bit more concentrated or a stronger flavor than the extract. So if you're making this at home, you may just have to play around with the recipe, using a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on what root beer you're getting. Feel free to experiment. But instead of that classic vanilla ice cream with the root beer poured over the top, for the float today, what we're going to do is sort of make a reverse root beer float. So we are going to use cream soda as the soda, and then we're going to make a root beer flavored ice cream. It's going to be real, real delicious. So just let this sort of hang out here. Let all of that carbon dioxide go into the water. And from here, you'll notice that we do have 2 cameras set up. So one of them is on my KitchenAid mixer. If you want to do this at home, you can make it in a regular mixing bowl with a wooden spoon. I would recommend the wooden spoon or like a paddle because it will get stuck in a whisk as the ice cream starts to freeze while you're mixing it up. The other thing to consider is you do want a bowl big enough. As we start adding in that carbon dioxide, it's going to start to bubble, and we just want to make sure it doesn't bubble. But what we're going to do is we're going to add in, this is about a pint or 2 cups of heavy cream. So we're going to add that to the mixing bowl. Put this down, make it a little easier to dump that in. This is 1 can or about 14 ounces of sweetened condensed milk, and this is going to add all of the sweetness that we need today. So just make sure to get all of this scraped out of the cup here. And if you're trying to go more of like a vegan or like a vegetarian pathway, you can also use something like sweetened condensed coconut milk, and you can use almond milk as like your base for this. So you can feel free to experiment with the recipe. You can change the flavors. So maybe instead of using root beer, I know in the past I've done like a strawberry concentrate. I'll add that in. Or I actually made a basil flavored ice cream once, which was really delicious, just using a basil paste. So you can play around with the flavors. And that's one of the things that I really love about this industry and about being a chef, is that you get to be creative and you get to experiment. This is just the root beer extract. I've already portioned out the amount that we need for the recipe, and we will be including that. So at the end of the presentation, you'll be able to see the recipe that we're using if you want to try to recreate this at home. But we have some root beer extract here and a little bit of vanilla extract as well. We're just going to add that to the mixing bowl. And then from here, all we need to do is start mixing it up. So I'll raise the mixer up. I'm going to start going at a low speed. So this is set at about number 2 on the mixer here that we have. And what I'm going to do is try to get as much of the powder of the dry ice as possible. So I'm just going to start slowly dusting this in here. Obviously, nobody wants to bite into a big chunk of dry ice. We already said don't touch it. Speak of a freezer burn, or speak of like a headache. This will definitely cause one of those like frozen headaches. I don't know if y'all get those when you eat ice cream if it's too cold. So we do want to make sure that we're letting all of this dry ice sublimate or turn to gas before we actually consume this ice cream. So today I'm going to try and use the powder so we can make this ready a bit faster. We'll put it in the freezer for about 15 minutes when we're done to make sure that if any chunks of dry ice are getting into this mixer, that they do have the chance to sublimate. But obviously the powder, since it's finer, will help to freeze this faster and to turn to a gas faster, so you don't have to worry about consuming big chunks. And then from here, all we want to do is just keep adding the dry ice little bits at a time until this reaches the desired consistency that we're going for. So I'm going to speed it up just a little bit, let it kind of mix. Let that gas sort of clear out, and we'll check to see what this looks like in terms of consistency. Oh yeah, so that's looking really, really good right there. It's starting to thicken up. Looks like maybe just a few more spoonfuls left. And in terms of dry ice, I bought a pack of it. So I actually got it from Harris Teeter, which is one of my favorite grocery stores down here in Charlotte. It was about 4-pound bag of it. We're not going to use anywhere near 4 pounds. So when you buy it, it's not too expensive. I believe I paid around $7 for 4 pounds of dry ice. You could probably get by with just a pound or 2 if you're making this for home use and home consumption. So from here, we're going to let it get to our desired consistency before we freeze it. A couple of recommendations for you. So there are 2 ways that you can actually make this dry ice cream. The first one is what we're doing right here, where we're incorporating the dry ice directly in, using that to freeze it. A couple things to consider about that method is we are adding carbon dioxide, which does have a little bit of an acidic taste. Think of like the bubbly carbonation that you get when you drink a soda. So this is going to carbonate the ice cream, meaning that if you're making something like just a vanilla ice cream and you go to taste it, it may taste a little bit off. So you want to think about the flavors that you're actually combining. If you're going to use this method here, the other thing that you can do, though, is if you want to get rid of some of that sort of acidic flavor, that carbonation, is you can leave it sit in the freezer for even longer. So if you leave this sit in the freezer overnight, a lot of that fizziness will sort of leave the ice cream flavor. But if you want to avoid that altogether, let's say you just want a traditional vanilla ice cream, a traditional chocolate ice cream, what you could actually do instead is use 2 mixing bowls. So you put one mixing bowl on the bottom and you put all the dry ice in there. You put the other one over the top and then you just whisk small amounts of that ice cream base over top of it. So that way the heat can sort of transfer through the bowl and freeze the ice cream without actually adding the dry ice to it. But as you can see, this is reaching a really nice sort of a custardy consistency. And we're actually almost right where we want it to be. So just another scoop or 2 here. And I might actually sort of turn this off on low and then just grab this rubber spatula and sort of scrape the bottom of the bowl here. Make sure that there's nothing sort of settling in, sort of freezing to the bottom. And that way we'll be able to use it. So just make sure this is fully incorporated. This is a really awesome consistency right here. We'll go with maybe just 1 more scoop of that dry ice and then we'll let this freeze. And while this is in the freezer, what I'm going to do is make some whipped cream. And that way we can sort of garnish this up with some homemade whipped cream. So if you're in a hurry, you can also use like a Ready Whip or something like that. Doing this at home. Now, when you're looking for dry ice, let's say that you're having a hard time finding it, you can go online and just search for like Penguin dry ice. A lot of grocery stores will carry it. I know some Walmarts carry it, but you might want to call ahead to make sure they have it. Or in the past, when I've used this for a demonstration, I've also looked at stores like an Airgas. You can call them up and you can get like the pellets of dry ice and then just crush them up yourself. And this looks like we are just about here. So here, this is a really nice consistency. I'm going to adjust this camera and sort of remove it from the bowl here. Give you a good view of the mise en place of what we have going on. So if we get this set up right. Okay, perfect. Let's let that hang out. Remove the paddle attachment. This is perfect. I'm going to throw this into the freezer right here. And you'll notice that I also do have a bowl of just a stainless steel mixing bowl in here. Whenever you're making something like a whipped cream, you want to have things as cold as you possibly can. Having a cold bowl and a cold whisk and also really cold cream is going to help the fat molecules that are in the whipped cream trap the air better as we go to whip it up. So from here, I'm not necessarily going to measure how much I need. We will be sweetening up with a little bit of powdered sugar and some vanilla extract. I don't need a ton here. We're just doing this for a garnish. So a little bit of cream in the bowl. And you could use a mixer and do this yourself. Obviously, I've already used the stand mixer today, and my ice cream is still in that bowl. So we're just going to beat this by hand. So making whipped cream is actually a really interesting process. And if you're interested in food science, here at Johnson Wales, we actually do have a really cool major, Applied Food Science, Innovation, and Technology. Jumping into that will allow you to start jumping into sort of the organic and the biochemistry behind what is happening when you're making food, so you can understand the ingredients a little bit better. But the really cool thing with whipped cream, there's actually these triglycerides that are there. And in these molecules, part of it is hydrophobic, meaning it does not like water. And part of it is hydrophilic, meaning that it loves water and it's able to sort of suspend in water. So as we're whipping this whipped cream up, what's actually happening is we are sort of mixing up those particles. The parts that are hydrophobic are unwinding. And since they don't like the water, what they actually start to do is they bind together with other pieces of the molecule that are also hydrophobic, where they don't like the water. And while they do that, they trap the air. So you're getting little bubbles of air in this cream. And that's actually what causes it to go from that liquid state to more of that solid state as we whip this cream up. So that's just a very basic explanation for you, sort of a surface level explanation. If you study food science, you'll be able to dive much more in depth. And that's one of the really cool things about Johnson & Wales is that if you choose to come here for culinary arts, you're going to learn much more than just how to cook. You actually have the ability to sort of customize your experience here, get you into what specific part of the industry that you're interested in. And as I'm sure you're all aware, being a chef in today's world, so much more than just working in restaurants. And while that is still a really awesome opportunity, and you can work in restaurants all over the globe, maybe even start a food truck or a catering company or a kitchen, food science is actually one of the fastest growing areas in the industry. And you got to think, anything you buy at the grocery store, whether you get a box of Pop-Tarts, whether you get a pack of ramen noodles, whether you get a breakfast bar, or even a frozen dinner, all of those had somebody in a lab that was putting a lot of thought into both creating the recipe. They also had to consider, how are they going to package this? If we're going to make this in a warehouse, how are we going to ship this all over the country and make sure that it stays fresh by the time it gets to your plate? And they're also looking at how can we make this taste as delicious as possible. So this little bit of vanilla extract, we're just going to add that in. Continue whipping. You can see that it's starting to solidify here. Some of those bubbles are starting to form. And we're also going to add in a little bit of powdered sugar. One of the things that I like to think of as we're doing this is the ice cream that we're adding in is going to be very, very sweet. So you can sort of contrast what you're making with the real sweet ice cream and sort of a more mild flavor of this chantilly cream, this whipped cream. And you might feel like as you're doing this, this is just taking all day. So if you have like an electric mixer, those also can help speed up the process. We are actually just about where we want to go. So while I finish whipping this up, I'm going to ask my colleague who's running the camera behind the scenes, Chef Vanetti, could you please get me some hot water so I can make a quenelle of this whipped cream? I'll show you how to garnish this up once it's done. You can also, when you're making this, if you want the whipped cream to be a little bit more bright and white, instead of using the dark vanilla extract, you can get the clear vanilla extract as well. Another thing for you to sort of consider is that, like, when we eat with our eyes. We eat with our nose. We eat with our taste buds. We eat with sound. You get to hear things. Maybe think like a sizzling pan. So when you're consuming food, you're using all of your senses. And these are things that we both as chefs and as food scientists are going to play around with to sort of improve that sensory experience. Make sure you can really enjoy what you're consuming. Here we are just about good to go. I like to go with sort of a medium peak where when you put this in there, it'll start to lift up. I like that sort of a medium peak. So we should be good to go. From here, I'm just going to set this dry ice over to the side. Get that out of the way. This is perfect. Thank you so much, Chef. And I know I said we'd let this wait for 15 minutes. What I'm going to do just for the demonstration purposes today is scoop this up. I'm going to show you what it looks like plated, and I will probably wait to consume the actual dish itself. So we've got our mug right here. Before I start to plate everything up, since I'm going to be working with some ready-to-eat foods, what I will do is, here's my gloves. I got them over here. Throw on a pair of gloves. Try to work as cleanly as possible. And I've got a little ice cream scooper over here. So I will also get that warmed up. Water there. Good scoop of this ice cream. Make sure this fits. One. those edges there. So we got 2 scoops of ice cream in the mug here. This can go directly back in. We've got this cream soda. There we go. Put this over the top. See what that ice cream looks like, that awesome creamy texture there. We're going to use some of this Virgil's cream soda, so we'll pour over the top. This is going to be so tasty. I'm so excited. Quenelle of that whipped cream. The quenelle is a technique that you might learn in your class. We're just looking for a nice sort of smooth oval shape. See the football? Put that there. And we'll finish it off with my favorite maraschino cherry. And here we are, a delicious root beer dry ice cream float with some cream soda, kind of like a reverse take on that traditional root beer float. So I do want to say thank you all so much for tuning in today. I hope you learned something. I hope you're able to take this recipe and apply it. I want to wish you all the best of luck as you look to making your future decisions, regardless of where you end up. If you do have any questions about higher education, if you're interested in getting into culinary arts, definitely feel free to reach out to us here at Johnson & Wales University. My contact information will be on the recipe, so you can feel free to shoot me an email. If you make this, I would love to see a picture of it. If it turns out, I'd love to hear about your success. And if it doesn't turn out, I'd love to maybe help you troubleshoot and see how you can improve that next time. As chefs, that's all a part of the learning curve. You're expected to make mistakes as you first start off. The important thing is that you're able to learn from those mistakes and sort of make the most of them. So I do want to sort of finish up here. We will be sharing all of that information with you, and I hope to hear from you all in the future. If any of you are interested in Johnson & Wales, you can also look to tune into some of our virtual events. We are actually doing virtual cook-along events currently, where we'll send you the ingredient list. You can tune in via Zoom, and we'll guide you through preparing a delicious recipe alongside one of our Johnson & Wales chefs. You can explore some of our other virtual offerings by going to jwu.edu and sort of taking a look around. And other than that, I hope you all have a really great rest of your afternoon. Thank you.